Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We're very sorry for this delay. We have some technical issues trying to start this session. Once again, my name is Javier Endes. I'm the communications manager at AmCham Colombia from Bogota, and will be your host today. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to continue with the markets overview, part of the Texas Business Trade and Investment Week, organized by AmCham Colombia, the Colombo American Chamber of Commerce, and in partnership with the Commerce and Economic Development Tourism Office at the Texas Governor's Office. This afternoon, we are going to have more information from two countries in this region in order to have information about business, in this case with Peru and Ecuador. First, we're going to have our colleague from AmCham Peru. He's Luis Altamirano, and later during the session, we're going to be joined by Ivan Ortiz from the Trade Center at AmCham Ecuador. So let's start with this event. Luis, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. Now I'm going to share my presentation. Can you tell me if you can see it?
Yes, we can see it, and as in the previous sessions, we can remind to our viewers that you can put your questions in the chat window. So we're going to be answering them once Luis finishes his presentation. Go ahead, Luis.
Okay. First of all, thanks to AmCham Colombia for the invitation. My name is Luis. I'm going to talk to you about basically a Peruvian market overview and some business opportunities, basically regarding everything that explain our 2021 outcome and what are some of our drivers, issues, and some important opportunities that we need to take in consideration for 2022 and in general for any American company that wants to do some business with us with in Peruvian land and also throughout basically in Latin America. This is the index of the main things I'm going to talk about, basically the main objectives and some small country descriptions, our third quarter results and our 2021 predictions, because we're basically about to end the fourth quarter. Why 2022 is an important year for us, and especially for the Peruvian development path. This is because we just we had a new president elected this June, so we're gonna start seeing all of his policy works like really from 2022 and so on. Then some international context, some risk and business opportunities, and also at least the current relation with in terms of trade with the USA and specifically with Texas. Well, basically the main objectives of this presentation is to give you a whole brief of the Peruvian economy as well as the main sectors. And what I want to talk to you about the 2022 is an educated guess. And last but not least, as I already said, what are some opportunities regarding the Texas, the USA within Peru? What are the current expectations? What are we sending to the US to Texas, and what is Texas sending to Peru, and how are the companies taking advantage of it, or what can some enterprises take advantage of regarding some important projects, regarding some important infrastructure gaps that we currently have that could be really good for business. First of all, I want to talk about my country, Peru. Peru is basically 2 times Texas in terms of size. Basically, our land composition is 53% of forest, only 11% of coasts, and the rest is just the highlands. We're crossed by the main Andes region, and we are a very diverse country. We have copper, we have silver, we have gold, wood, iron, coal, natural gas, and these are some of our main important activities in terms of economic development. Mining activity is, for example, one of the most important, as well as the forest, and especially one that has been growing in the last years is the agricultural sector. Our population is around 32 million. This is information from 2018. It should be basically the same right now, maybe 33, and our life expectancy is 75 years old. What I want to say, what I wanted to talk about straight away from our the Peruvian economic composition. We're a diversified economy with a significant use of natural resources. You can see there are two main images. One is a 2019 image and one is a 2020. I wanted to show this because since COVID hit us pretty hard and basically in the whole world, there have been some slight changes. As you can see, for example, our GDP in terms of in total, which is in billion soles, fell from 546 to 486 billion soles. But the composition didn't change so much. There were some minor changes, but the whole aggregate basically stays the same. The agricultural sector represents around 5 to 6% of our total economy, fishing around 0.5. Mining is a really important economy, a really important subsector because it only represents around that one 10% and is one of the most important in terms of exportations and in terms of private investments. Services, as in many countries, is the main one. It aggregates a lot of sectors like banking, services, tourism, and some other important areas. But in one of the most important with the most growth, as you can see in the presentation, is the agricultural sectors. Especially non-traditional exportations have been gaining a lot of ground throughout the last years, as for example, exportations of berries, exportation of avocados. All the non-traditional agricultural sector has been one of the most important for us in terms of development, in terms of new companies, and in terms of new companies settling down here, not only from the US, but also from all around the world. As you can see here, this is the Peruvian economy, its quarterly evolution. Now on, for the first 9 months of 2021, we're $40 billion away from reaching 2020 levels. I think we're definitely gonna make it. As you can see there, we had a big COVID hit during the third quarter of 2020, but we are already setting up the levels previous to the pandemic, and hopefully, as I'm gonna talk later, we'll reach 2019 levels already in this year, not in 2022, which is gonna be a big challenge in terms of next year, but economically talking, in terms of production, in terms of basically in terms of production, we're already set and we're already surpassing the economic COVID hit. First of all, as I said, the third quarter for Peruvian economy was better than expected. We had a monthly growth by September of 9.7 monthly. This is considering also that during the third quarter of 2020, we already had this important reactivation process. Peruvian economy was not totally shut down. We had 4 phases of economic reactivation. We were already in the third by that time. And even though, as you can see in the presentation, that we used to grow monthly from 59 to 48, and it may look like it's diminishing, it is actually not, because when we compare these numbers, as I'll show you later on, we're already surpassing those levels of 2019, because of the base effect, we're obviously going to grow against 2020. But all the economic activities have shown since the start of the year an important recovery, especially in the services sector, since it was the most restricted at the first, and most of their activities had the ability to start and to reopen by the 4th phase, which started around October of last year. As I already said, the mine is well, as I already said, as you can see on that small chart on the left, those big monthly growths, 59, 48, are compared to 2020. But those ones on the light blue, from May and forward, we're already growing against 2019, which is basically the whole production of 2021 is already bigger from May and on against 2019. So we're already set on the path. And on September, it was the biggest monthly growth throughout the whole year, because it was 3.1 against 2019 levels. In terms specifically of the recovery, the mining sector was one of the most important. we've been taking advantage of the opportunities presented by the good prices of copper, of gold also, and the production has been really good. We have been seeing growth rates of 20% by gold, 17.5 in copper, 3.7 in silver, and throughout, as you can see on the image on the right, many activities are registering double-digit growth by September, by the whole year. You can see there's a line that says enero septiembre, which is the whole growth for the first 9 months of the year. And there are many activities growing. And for now, from January to September, the total growth against 2020 has been 17.5, basically, which is really high. And the expectation for this year is at least to be around 13%, which is gonna cover the loss of 2020, in which we felt 11.2%, I think. We're already returning to the 2019 levels. Also, international trades also rebounded really well. It's the same figure. Against 2019, we already surpassed all the levels, specifically in the mining sector, and we have a trade surplus in favor of Peru, basically because of all the copper production in the last 2 years, specifically this year. And with the results of September, there's an historical surplus reached for the last 12 months, not the first 9 months, but the last 12, which is in total of $13 billion. The Peruvian Central Bank usually publishes quarterly reports regarding their projections, their economic overview, and this is a result of the last report, which was published on September. It said that they expect the Peruvian economy to grow around 11.9%. Their previous report said 10.7, which is really good because there's more than an optimism. There's a clear path of the recovery, and now, basically, when we're heading towards the end of the year, there's also been a new adjustment. There's gonna be a new report published, I think around in December or maybe the first days of January. But already, since the fourth quarter is the most dynamic in terms of private consumption, I'm assuming, and many analysts are assuming, that the growth is gonna be bigger. It's not gonna be 11.9. It's not gonna be 12.5. It may be at least 13%, which is really good. But in the case of 2022, there's also an important adjustment because there's a lot of political uncertainty and economic uncertainty. First of all, the COVID crisis hasn't stopped, even though our target population is around 72 to 70% of the total population already vaccinated. There's still that risk. And since all of the recovery of the economic activity is taking place in 2021, there's not going to be any less for it for 2022, which immediately takes some of that share and moves it to 2021. So what we're going to see on 2022 is pure economic recovery, plain, no COVID effect, no base effect, which is, I think, it's better for the economic analysis because we're like already surpassed this change in the perception of the data, which happened with the COVID, and many research areas and economic studies have also been updating with that information. And for example, from this report, you can see important banks or important consulting firms changing their projections. You have here BBVA Research, Scotiabank, and Credicorp Capital. The three of them published some important reports, and all of them surpassed the initial projection of 11.9. BBVA said 12.2, Scotiabank said 12.3, and Credicorp said 12.5. This is good, but the same thing happens. Their projections changes for 2022 because of the effect that is like already taking place, that is is heading towards 2021. This is basically, from the case of Scotiabank, part of the base effect, the recovery of the internal demand and the private investment compared against 2020. But for example, as you can see here, as the same as information, good projections for in the case of BBVA research, from a 9.99% projection by a report published in July. Now they say the Peruvian economy might grow 12.2. The same thing happens with 2022. From a 4.3 projection, they're now diminishing to 2.3. Why? Because of the things I've said, and basically because of the economic uncertainty and private business confidence. For example, our the main central banker, Julio Verde, also said that Peruvian economy might grow up to 13.2, which is good. So if I had to sum up the whole economic overview of Peru, it was the fiscal impulses, the economic reactivation, good prices, and a really good and successful vaccination campaign really helped to explain the good expectations for 2021 at least, which means we have already outcome the COVID crisis, but there's still the risk. The fourth quarter is the most dynamic, so growth will be at least to 12.3 to 12.5%. Even though the year hasn't ended, many analysts said, as already mentioned, that we're going to be returning to pre-pandemic levels, which was estimated to be achieved in 2022. Critical Capital already said that the first 9 months of 2021 against the first 9 months of 2019, we already grew 0.5%, which is really good. All the international recovery and the internal uncertainty and the impact of political decisions, the big structural political decisions, are going to be seen in 2022. Better for the analysis and better for, in my opinion, for some policy making, for doing some criticizing, but it's still gonna be a tough year. Here, why 2022 is gonna be a key year for the Peruvian development path? As I already mentioned, we're gonna be clean from all the rebound effect caused by COVID, and changes will respond merely to the COVID. To the economic recovery, to the presidential decrees, economic decisions, business opportunities, but no more lower starting points. Like, we're not starting for 0.5, we're starting from ground zero, which is going to be way better for the analysis to make the policy decisions. Also, many of the decisions, the work plan, investment plans take place by the end of the year. It's not going to respond no more to COVID decisions. It's gonna respond to the political and international context, which is really good. And also, there's gonna be a big change in terms of the public and monetary policies, because globally, I don't think there's been a single country left out by the effects of inflation, by inflation rates. The U.S. Federal Reserve is supposed to be doing some rises on the international rate from the I forget the word, but basically rises on the rates, less fiscal stimulus, and that is going to change if the Fed takes the decision, which is going to happen. Most of the banks that are currently watching it are going to start doing it the same. So we're going to start to see many upper interest rates in the following year. In the case of Peru, the last interest rate change was last week. It changed from 2.25% to 2.5%. And there's the expectation that it will rise up until 3%. Then this is going to be throughout the whole year in order to contain the inflation, which I don't think there's a single country that basically kept it under their target range. But the most important thing, basically the real reason of this presentation, is that economic growth will depend basically and definitely on business confidence. Investment decisions are subject to the political situation, macroeconomic stability, the abilities of governments to pay their debt, and currently, in the case of Peru, that perception is a little bit damaged. Uh, Although there's not a contraction of the private investment to be expected, for now, private investment is expected to grow no more than 1% for 2022. I just read on this article published by Scotiabank that mining investment may fall 3%. This is because the presidential changes, uh, they have not been they do not get agree on a message. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of short term and basically populist decisions, but more than decisions, pronunciations, announcements. I don't want to say false promises, but definitely false promises that start impacting the image of Peruvian of how serious Peruvian government is going to be. And for example, as you can see on the image on the right, uh, even though the last report of the central bank said that most of the expectations of the economy grew against previous month, there's still we haven't surpassed the positive side, which is in the past the 50 points, and we're on levels similar to the financial crisis. And this is not anymore because of COVID. This is because of for the perception and for the clear improvisation that we're seeing currently on the governments, some bad decisions, some bad namements, and that hopefully are going to start to clear up soon. There are huge opportunities, which is that are some of the things I want to show you in a bit in terms of development of Peru, because uh, as a developing country, there are many opportunities in terms of infrastructure. There are many opportunities in the mining sector. There's a big number of projects available that they need to take place, and hopefully they'll get along. But hopefully also all the authorities start shaping up and start getting together for a single path of the Peruvian development. Some of the indicators are that for 2022, the price levels in the case of inflation will return to its target range, which is around 2% a year. The exchange rate will remain above the 4 soles per dollar. This is because of two things. Chapters of uncertainty that there are definitely going to be throughout the whole year, and U.S. policies to combat inflation, and the withdrawal of fiscal stimulus due to the clear recovery of the economic activity that is no longer needed. So I already said, the central bank is expected to keep raising its rate throughout 2022. In the case of Peru, between 3 and 4%, and the last time, for example, that rate was above 3% was in 2018. Our public debt will remain above 30%, 32 and 34 for the next years, and it will increase in the next years. It's still not a very high public debt, but there's this risk that it will go up, where nobody wants to enter on default. Our numbers are currently good, but there's always that I don't want to say this fear, but this clear consequence if we don't start reactivating the economy well. The reactivating projects, important projects that need to take place, if we don't start solving very important social conflicts that are taking place in order for the whole Peruvian growth. As I already said, in terms of, for example, some opportunities for infrastructure enterprises. Peru has a long challenge, and it's been a long challenge for the Peruvian government to close the infrastructural gap for many years. And when I say infrastructure gap, I'm talking about transportation, I'm talking about roads, I'm talking about sanitation projects, I'm talking about hospitals, I'm talking about telecommunications. And currently the short term by talking about a period of 5 years, the current infrastructural gap is about 117 billion soles, which is around $35 billion. 35 billion. And in the long term, infrastructural gap is around uh, 110 billion dollars around. I don't remember exactly the currency exchange, around four. But there's for example, this is all that money, all those numbers represent some of the projects that are going to take place, some of the projects that are supposed to start to develop, to start to taking place. They have all been like prioritized in a whole agenda, but there are still many public adjudications. uh, Companies can apply to award those projects and to development, uh, with the government supervision, and also by doing some other important projects. For example, another clear example with the public and private associations for infrastructure development. There's big opportunities for developing projects throughout many economic sectors. I'm not talking just basically about, I mean, there's infrastructure, but there's infrastructure in many sectors. Not, for example, health, sanitation, education, energy. Energy is one of the most important. There are many projects required that are going to be awarded to companies. Uh, Tourism also, and this energy sector represents one of the most important. For 2022 to 2022, uh, the government expects to award, to adjudicate, I don't know the exact word, but to do public and private associations for around $6,300 million. So there's a need. All the projects have already been mapped, have already been scanned, have already been decided. We know, Peruvian government knows what needs to be done. The problem is to do it right, and to do it slowly, and to do it within the time. Some of international context besides that also influence on these decisions. For example, in terms of commodity prices, the price of copper, although it has fallen to the values of the second quarter of this year, remain at high and attractive levels, and for the promotion of the mining activity, which is basically what has been happening throughout the whole year. Uh, I saw you the growth of the copper of 17.5, the goal of 20.2. Um, what could be a small problem, or something that might raise up alarms, is the possibility, but this is not only talking about Peru, this is talking about as a whole economy, as a whole world, the possibility of a Chinese deflation, of a slowdown, and which is basically the risk of inflation and the rising unemployment. But well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Some of the indicators may say it will, but the price is still really good for producing more of the mineral, for start to keep developing projects. And there are many projects that have already been mapped, that are going to take place. So some of them have been stopped, but there's a big number of projects that I'm going to show you right away, for example, that are going to be developed in the next years. Currently, in terms of new projects, repositions, and extension of projects and current projects, there are around 43 projects. 35 are new, which add up around 48.3 billion in terms of total investment, and eight repositions and extension projects. These are brownfield projects. In terms of by type of mineral, as I said, Peru is a mining country, uh, and Peru is the second most important exporter of copper. There are currently 23 projects mapped to be developed, projects that are taking place now. but we also have gold, we also have iron, we have an important reserve of lithium and also silver. And this is the timeline of some of the projects that are going to be developed and the amount of money they represent. No? For example, 7 new projects that should start the construction in 2022, and these are projects that will add up until 4.4 billion, and the total mining investment estimated between 2022 and 2025 is $11.7 billion. Uh, that's a big amount, but it will depend also, as I mentioned previously, on the business confidence, on the business perspective of how serious of a country are we due to our recent presidential change and some of the conflict we've been seeing with with the authorities, and also some of the social demands that need to be resolved uh, as quickly as we can. Because those are important problems, but there needs to be a solution. We need to start solving those problems to be able to develop these projects well, because many of these projects already include their impact on the environment. The most of them, well, basically all of them, have all the things required for a sustainable development, but there are still some social demands that they need to be answered. They need to be set up into dialogue for a total a growth for basically all of us. Also, an important opportunity that was this agreement, uh, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that entered into force in the third quarter of this year. And in the case of Peru, for example, this is the first commercial link with 4 new countries, which is New Zealand, Brunei, Vietnam, and Malaysia. But also, there are many countries that we already have some trade agreements with, and which this agreement is going to allow us. We're going to be able to deepen ties within these countries, and there's going to be less restrictions with the countries, for example, like Japan, with Chile, Mexico, Canada, and Singapore. The CPP eliminates barriers to the export of services and allows the temporary entry of Peruvian technicians and professionals in those countries. Uh, this is really important for Peru. For example, we've been developing the agricultural sector, has been one of the ones that has been growing a lot. So it's going to be a huge opportunity to enter to these markets with taking in consideration the trends for healthy food, the superfoods. This is basically all the non-traditional exportations of Peru in terms of agricultural development. I'm talking about asparagus, I'm talking about peaches, I'm talking about grapes, I'm talking about quinoa, avocado, berries, and many, many, many more fruits and vegetables. Also, there's an important opportunity in the textile sector in terms of clothes producing. There's also a big opportunity. Just to give a clear image of how important this specific can be, uh, the economies that signed the agreement represent around 13% of the total GDP, of the global GDP, and 15% of the international trade. The United Kingdom has also initiated the process to become part of this agreement as well, which will be also a huge opportunity for us. First of all, as I don't think I don't need to mention this anymore. Uh, but inflation and prices affected all of the country. One may read that Peruvian inflation and the consumer prices rose like significantly against previous years, but as we can see in the charts, many of the countries suffered the same. No, this is basically because monetary and fiscal policies need to respond to the needs of the moment, which can be inject liquidity, some bonds, so that employment or consumption uh, will rise again. But these policies will always change, and none of the policies are eternal. And this is basically what's going to happen in 2022. We're going to start seeing those contractions in terms of fiscal uh, fiscal expansion in order to control these rates for a good economic recovery, not with no more price changes or big abrupt price changes. For example, an example, for example, of uncertainty and some of the restrictions are some word changes in the on the electric bills uh, uh, that have added up significantly. For example, when we're comparing against COVID, rises on the price of electricity, even though it's can be from to 4 to 3 soles, it's still a significant change of around 11%, 11%, 13, depending on the enterprise, depending on the type of development, on the type of consumption. But hopefully, this will all start to clear down for the next year because of the clear of these effects and the less restrictions. I wanna one more important aspect that I wanna share, not but not least, is the current picture of the trade relationship Peru has with the USA, and also I found some important information with the relationship with Texas. First of all, despite the contraction, uh, the U.S. remained the second most important partner uh, of Peru. Around it represented around of 16% of the Peruvian total exportations. And regarding the importation, the imports, it also remained the second, representing around 18.5. And you can see here on the graph, I have some of the information for 2021, and we're already in the 2020 levels because the information I'm showing you here it's between January and October of 2021. I'm not considering, well, basically because the year hasn't ended. I'm not considering information from November and December because there is no information currently, but we already surpassed the levels of 2020, which is really good, which means all the economic activity is starting to get better. Specifically about the import, Peruvian importations are no, yeah, importations. So basically, what we're buying from the U.S. already surpassed the 2020 levels, and hopefully, in the last two months that are left in terms of the data analysis, we'll start seeing it more. No? For example, this is a clear when we see 2020 against 2021 a general recovery from February and keeping forward in terms of our exportations to the USA, and in case of the Peruvian import from the USA, we've already been surpassing levels, and hopefully we'll keep on track of that trend. No? Even though we had a cyclical behavior, we have remained on the rise, but American exports to Peru in my opinion, have had a better uh, trend and result. Last but not least, also the relationship with Texas has been improving. First of all, most of 50% of the Texan exports to Peru are oil and its byproducts. Just by October, all the information already surpassed the 2020 levels, and the motor vehicles represented around 10% of the total exportations from Texas to Peru. There's a good trend. Hopefully, we'll keep seeing it. If we're talking about fuel, if we're talking about motor vehicles, for example, in our case, Peruvian gasoline prices have been adding up a little bit against previous years. I don't see it in the short term returning to previous levels, as you can see here, of 16 soles per gallon. But this is gonna be between 17 to maybe 18 in some places. That's how the price is gonna start to behave. Well, that's basically it. Now, our relationship with Texas is good. It represented around I mean, compared to other states, I think, well, basically, yeah, to other states, Texan taxes represents around 6%, I think, of the Peruvian exportations to the USA. I don't think I could find the exact number of how much Texan exportations to Peru represent, but there's a clear trend. There's gonna be a need of gas, I think, of gasoline in the next years. Well, there's gonna be clearly a big need of infrastructure, uh, the presence of big firms, and there are also opportunities. But the current scenario is hopefully that we cool down in terms of political decisions, political paths, because 2022 we're not going to start seeing all of that COVID effect that starts to change our perception of the current economic recovery. So 2022, in the case of Peru, is going to be a year where people, where companies are going to be seeing a country that is either growing or falling, responding to the economic activity. No more to restrictions, no more to specific conditions, hopefully. Well, first of all, there hasn't been a third wave here in terms of COVID. So we're going to be see a year that is going to relocate, that we may grow for now between 2 to 3%. Private investment on that's going to be currently always on the watch because of the tensions, of the bad messages of the authorities. But there's this will to invest in Peru. Many of the people that say that I don't want to go, I want to go here, I want to go and start evaluating options somewhere else. They may say it, but at the end, they know there are huge opportunities in Peru. There are many opportunities. That infrastructure gap's really good, and hopefully, many of these people that are clearly concerned, uh, hopefully, we all start acting up, starting to foment some dialogue for to unleash our whole potential, because there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for companies. We have the necessity to do some more mobility of stuff, to do some more roads, to build hospitals, and there are opportunities clear, and just hope that there's an agreement between the people, between the parties, between the congressmen, the president, and its representatives. So that's it basically for my presentation. If there are some doubts, uh, just uh, just please let me know if there is somebody needs a question or somebody wants to know about something.
Thank you, Luis, for your presentation, your overview from the market, for the Peruvian market. Actually, we have time for two or three questions because we have now Ivan from Amcham Ecuador already with us in this session.
Yeah.
There's a question from Victor. He asked, "Is there a website where we can go offer our services to the oil and gas refineries in your country?" Maybe I don't know if you have
There's an
information with you.
important page called the there might be some important information. I'm not exactly sure, but Osinermin was. Yeah, I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna get in touch with Victor, but the main page is Osinermin. They are the main supervisors that review and control the whole oil and gas business and review it, as well as electricity, and what as all the basically all the fossil fuels. They are the main authority, and there can be a good touch. But in our case, for example, AmCham could be a really good business partner to get in that touch. I don't remember if Osinermin was a part or has attended to AmCham meetings, but we have definitely invited them. So there's definitely an opportunity for enterprises. We are the main contact. We have some contacts in Osinermin, and we can definitely get in touch. But the website to where you can start to locate and to find some information is Osinermin. I already got the email, Victor. Don't worry, I'm gonna send some of the details and all the information that you may need. And the case of the contact of AmCham, if AmCham Peru if you need it.
I'm going to take that opportunity and ask you if you want to share your email in the chat. So if there's somebody else who can send you specific questions about some specific sectors, you can get in touch and you can provide them with information. I have another question from Laura Marquez. Let me see. Okay, she has actually for your email to request some information about for the BPO and foreign trade services and context from Peru. I think Luis is sharing his email in the chat already. I think that will be everything for the Peru market at this moment. Thank you, Luis, for your presentation and accepting this invitation from AmCham Colombia and the Texas Governor's Office.
No, thank you, and for the opportunity. Hopefully let's keep in touch for more information or everything you need.
Sure, we will be in touch for more business opportunities with Colombian companies and companies with the United States. Thank you, Luis. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Ivan Ortiz. He is the director of the Trade Center at AmCham Ecuador. I don't know if Ivan can hear us, can see us.
Yes, Javier.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for accepting this invitation. Pretty good, thank you. Then the floor is yours. We were just having information from the Peru market, and now companies from Texas are expecting the information from Ecuador. So with no more introductions, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you give me just a minute to set the presentation, because I have to set something here in order to share.
Sure, no problem. Sure, no problem. And from our viewers, as we made it as in previous events, you can share your questions in the chat. We'll be answering them after Ivan's presentation from the market, other market. Ivan is from AmCham Ecuador. As you know, we work together with the AmCham network to share these business opportunities. Let's give him a minute. We have this technical issue with his presentation.
Javier, I have some technical problems. I sent the presentation to Jennifer in order to help me to share it with the all.
Okay.
Perfect, Ivan.
Thanks.
Let me see. Okay, so I'm here. Review your presentation, please.
Jen, you already have his presentation?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen right now.
Okay, great.
Great, thanks.
Okay then, so please.
Wait a minute, because I'm sharing another.
We already have a question from Laura. I'm going to do it in advance. I'm sure you probably in your presentation you will answer or touch this issue. Laura is asking for information about the BPO sector and foreign trade services. So probably if you have that sector in your presentation, she will be happy to hear from you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer, Javier. Thank you for the invitation. Good afternoon with everyone. My name is Ivan Ortiz. I'm the director of the AmCham Ecuador Business Center. In this short session, I would like to give you a general and a practical context of Ecuador in the economic, commercial, and political fields. First, I don't know if the presentation is already on. I can see it.
Jen, you just stop sharing your screen.
Let me try again, please. Could you see my screen? Could you confirm me, please?
Yeah, we can see it. You have to put it in presentation mode.
Okay, and now?
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, perfect, great, thank you.
Okay, so if Jennifer, you can, yeah, thank you. Well, at first, AmCham, as you know, is an organization that has been in Ecuador, has been growing, even though Ecuador still does not have a free trade agreement with the United States. We are an organization that represents 80% of the GDP in Ecuador in different sectors such as commercial, industrial, financial, technology, logistics, and services in general. Our main mission is to promote commercial relationships between Ecuador and the United States and to be the voice of the American companies in Ecuador. Next, please, Jennifer. Ecuador has a population, here are some numbers. Ecuador has a population of about 80 million people. FDI reached less than 1% of the GDP. We have not been a country that has received a lot of foreign direct investment compared to our neighbors. A growth of 3.55% is estimated for this year of the GDP. A relevant aspect beyond the figures is that we are a dollarized economy. We use dollar that is a legal currency in Ecuador, which has many advantages when it comes to international trade relations and investments. Please, next, Jennifer. The Central Bank of Ecuador forecasts that the gross domestic product, the 21, will register an internal growth of 3.55%, as I said. A recovery from the contraction of the 7.8% in 2020. This update reflects higher GDP growth compared to the 2.8% project in May of this year. The growth is due to the success of the vaccination plan that the government implemented this couple months ago, the increase in credit from the national system, and to the recovery of the oil exports. The good performance of the oil export and the increases on the low of remittances is also a good issue in the macroeconomic view of the country. And the recovery in the 2020 responds to the growth of the household final consumption expenditure, the exports of goods and services. We have increases in several products, and some investment in the gross fixed capital formation, mainly in the oil and mining sectors. And at the industry level, the highest growth is observed in oil refining, fishing, aquaculture and shrimp, commerce, and technology and communications. For 22, a preliminary growth of 2.5 is forecast, which responds mainly to investment also in oil and mining sector, and exports and final consumption. And regard to the industry level, the highest growth rates come from oil refining and also shrimp construction, mainly. Next, please. Thank you, Jennifer. Today, around 30% of Ecuador export correspond to oil. Of course, it will depend of a lot of the price of the barrel of oil to see the percentage growing up or down. And Ecuador is also a gasoline importer. In the country, the trade balance is divided to exclude the effect of a commodity such as oil and gasoline. And the global trade balance September of this year is positive with close to 2 billion. The amount of export is about 20% of GDP of Ecuador, and the imports about 19%. If we exclude oil exports and gasoline imports, the trade balance is negative for Ecuador at approximately 1 to 1.5% of the GDP. So you may see a picture of the balance of trade till September 21. Please, Jennifer, thank you. In these slides, you can see the top countries of which export is going. The non-oil export have grown at the rate of almost 15%, while the imports by 34%. How I said in this sheet, you can see the 5 main destination countries for Ecuadorian exports. The main country to which Ecuador's products are directed are the United States, followed by China and Russia. The United States has the highest export growth rate. You can see it in the slide as 15.7%. Next, please, Jennifer. And in the same picture of the import sides, we see that China has gained market in Ecuador, displacing the United States to the second place. This will be part of the process and the strategy of China. This has been a process of some years, which has undoubtedly affected by not having a free trade agreement with Ecuador, with the United States. Please, Jennifer, next. Well, I'm not going to stop long in this picture, but the main export products of the country are mostly agro-industrial and derived from fishing and aquaculture. You can see the main one is banana, shrimp, flowers, canned fish, tuna fish particularly. So that is the main structure, and of course, oil. Please, Jennifer. On the import side, there is a market for raw materials and capital goods in Ecuador, which represent more than 60% of the country's import, excluding fuels. And mainly this aspect comes from China, United States, and the European Union. Please, next. Please, next. With the States, the dynamics is similar. Imports from the United States grow at 29%, while Ecuadorian exports do at 16%. However, with the United States, we maintain a positive trade balance of Ecuador of more than 1 of the GDP. The United States continue to be the main trading partner for Ecuador. Please next, Jennifer. And the top 3 export products of Ecuador are the same, are shrimp, banana, roses, and some gold. While the main import sectors from the United States in general terms are pharmaceutical and chemical products, animal feed, minerals, and technology. The trade balance with Texas is positive for Texas. Ecuador imports from Texas represents 35% of Ecuador imports from the United States, so it's a main state. For the other side, Ecuador's exports to Texas represent 6% of the total exports from Ecuador to the United States. And the main products exported from Ecuador are agro-industrial, shrimp, fish products, and wood. And on the side of what we import from Texas, the main ones are the raw material, such as polymers and wheat. Next, please, Jennifer. Thank you. Finally, one more, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Finally, what are the expectations in Ecuador in the medium term? As of 2017, a political process of change of vision began. In May 2021, President Lasso won with a vision more of economic openness and friendly to the private sector. This implies that there is an emphasis in some changes in some areas, political increase and try to improve the climate of doing business with rule of law, and of course, recover the institutional framework. In the economic area, one key aspect of the government right now is give sustainable economic model through private investment. So in that sense, the government is sending a project, a new law, in order to give more predictability and incentive to the private investment here in Ecuador. And in the commercial area, the model that has been imposed by the government is to boost economy through trade and foreign investment, and of course, economic integration. An open commercial policy has been announced. One main of that is the Ecuador become a part of the Pacific Alliance. We are right now in a process of the negotiation of a trade agreement with Mexico. Of course, one of the main objective of the government is to deepen relations with the United States, and the protocol between United States and Ecuador in force from August of this year. This protocol, called the first phase, established general rules in terms of trade facilitation, good regulatory practices, anti-corruption, and SMEs. And of course, it's just enforced a couple of months ago. So, but sets a general rules to deepen the relationships between Ecuador and the United States. And of course, in 2022, some actions between two governments are also planned to continue strengthening trade relations. So that is the main issues that I want to share with you today, and I don't want it to keep more boring of my presentation. So I stop here, and if you have any comments or questions, I'm more than able to answer it. Thank you. Well, thank you again, Javier and Jennifer and all of you.
Thank you, Ivan. Basically, we have the question about the BPO services. Ecuador is attracting BPO services for companies in Texas.
Yes, I can share with the person that asked that question if she or he can put some email. Okay. So to Laura, I can share some information through email. I'm gonna put my email also in the chat in order to share it. But there is a sector that is growing, and with the perspective of the government to increase that will be one of the sector has been so many opportunities in that area.
Great. We have a question from John. Is there any growth, any green energy production, including geothermal?
So far, not. The green energy that we have is I don't know how to say it, the wind energy, because basically it the force of the wind, and that is the main aspect that so far there are plans to invest in that area, taking advantage of the winter, of the weather in some areas of the country.
Good. I don't see questions. So thank you, Ivan, for this time, for your presentation. We're going to share your information with all the companies that join us today. We already have your email, and in case of any company would like to get in touch with you directly to ask specific questions about any specific sector, in order to analyze the potential businesses. Thank you, Ivan, for joining us today in this event with Texas Business, from the Texas Business Trade and Investment Week. From AmCham Colombia, we would like to thank you once again for your cooperation, and to all of our companies from Texas, thank you for joining us. We hope these sessions will be very helpful in order to create more businesses for next year. And at this moment, this is everything for now. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye, Ivan. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Javier. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you, Javi.